Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Geeked Out. My name is Kyle.
And I'm Juan, aka Action Claxton.
All right, we're going to start that way.
See what I did there?
I do see. Uh,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this week we decided to go back to a little bit of a different time and watch an underappreciated and I believe a generally unknown 80s action movie. We watched Action Jackson. This movie was originally released on February 12th of 1988, and it was written by a man named Robert Renault, who also wrote, and I was pleased by this because this is one of my favorite action movies. He wrote Demolition Man, and it was
Nice.
directed by Craig R. Baxley, who just the year prior was the stunt coordinator on Predator. And as I'll get to later, that makes him the first of three direct connections to that movie.
Also, I think the producer, Joel Silver, or something like that. Joel
Did I miss
something.
that? Did Joel Silver seriously produce this movie?
Yes.
Jesus.
That's why there's a lot of recognizable faces that you've seen in other action movies.
Dude,
Spread
I've got so many fucking notes about
spread throughout this movie.
people that I recognized, like
Yeah,
just random bit parts.
yeah. It's mostly because it's that producer.
Okay, I honestly I hadn't even noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
But so this movie stars Carl Weathers, Craig T. Nelson, Vanity, Sharon Stone, Thomas F. Wilson, and the great Bill Duke. It has a. Now, I need you to hold on. I need you to make sure you're sitting down for this. It has a 5.5 out of 10 rating on IMDb. However, its Rotten Tomatoes score might make you sick to your stomach.
Probably not, just because I
I
know
know,
how
but I know that you have a
critics
love for
are.
the. I know that you have a love for this movie. So the
You,
audience score, the audience score is 35%, and the
oh,
critic score is 19.
well, that is a crime. That is a crime. But I'm willing to bet if you put other probably if you looked up Commando, I'm sure it's not that great when it comes to those type of scores.
Do you want me to do that right now?
Go for it.
I'm kind of curious now that you say that. Actually, it has a critic score of 67 and an audience score of 68, so a little better.
Oh, half, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I will start off by saying I've never seen this movie before this viewing, but I don't feel that that's a justifiable number.
No, not at all. Even like, I know that it didn't bomb in the box office. It actually made a pretty decent profit, actually. So it's not that it wasn't uh, a successful movie. It was. It's just for some reason a lot of people don't remember that this movie existed, unless you were, because I'm biracial, but my father's African American, and uh, if you were raised by an African American parent that was into action movies, if you're in your 30s like I am, I'm sure you have seen, or at the very least have heard of Action Jackson.
See, I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised that I had never even heard of it because I know my dad liked all of those 80s action movies, the cop
Mm-hmm.
movies, the but I don't know if this one just kind of slipped through his radar or. And I remember I had mentioned to him that we were doing this for the pod, and he kind of chuckled, and it was kind of like the reaction. It seemed to me was like a recognition, like yeah, I know that movie, but he didn't really say anything about it. So I
Yeah.
don't know if he just heard of it or if he'd
Uh,
actually seen it. He never really expanded on that, but
you
you're
should
right.
have him watch it and see how he feels about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you know what? I'm sure even if he hasn't seen it, he would enjoy it because
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's right up his alley.
Absolutely. It's honestly when you're looking at it at its very core of it, it's a generic 80s run-of-the-mill action movie. But it's so fun. It's such a fun, entertaining movie. Yes, it's corny. Yes, it's cheesy. Yes, it doesn't defy the laws of physics at
Well, it
all.
does. It does in one scene.
Well, yeah, true. But overall, this is a really fun movie. And it's a shame that we didn't get more of these. Because I feel like Carl Weathers was born to be an action star, you know? And
Well,
this is just a glimpse of what could have been.
what's funny what you said about this movie made money. It did. It had an estimated budget of $7 million, and it made 20 and a quarter $1 million. So it made money. And it's funny you say that about a sequel. I think this originally was they wanted to do some kind of a series or like a trilogy type thing of these movies. But this one, I don't think had their. It made money, but I think they were hoping that it did more, or I don't know why it never got off the ground. But I did in my research, I did see, and I can't remember what the name of the movie was. There was a movie that Carl Weathers did a couple years later that I believe it was in England or somewhere in Asia. Actually, titled it when it released over there. They titled it Action Jackson 2.
Yeah,
But it's not the same character. It's nothing the same. They just use that title. I don't know why, but I found that kind of amusing.
Yeah, it's so dumb. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I honestly feel like Hollywood should have honestly given him another shot at at these type of movies, man. Because it seemed like after this movie, kind of faded off into being the side character in most of the things you've seen him in on afterwards, and it sucks because he's definitely has the charm, the charisma, right up there with the Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Sylvester Stallones and all the guys from the '80s at the time. It's just this was the only movie we got of him where he starred in, and I think it's actually it's great, man. I think it's great.
I'll be honest. I can't think of another movie that Carl Weathers is the star of.
No,
Because when I think of Carl Weathers, the first thing I think of obviously is Apollo Creed. Now, they could have made an Apollo Creed movie, and he could have been the star. He could have been a phenomenal star, but in those movies, he obviously takes a backseat to Stallone. And then, I mean, Predator. He's a side character to Arnold. But other than that, I don't really know a whole lot about Carl Weathers' career until he gets to Happy Gilmore. And again, that's a side character played for comedy. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought I would have liked it a little more, and I'll explain why later. But I really enjoyed this movie, and I thought he did an excellent job. And you're right. I don't know why he didn't get more things like this. I mean, the guy's got acting talent. He's got charisma. He is built like he is carved out of fucking marble.
honestly, when it comes to the '80s action bodies, I think he's number one. Arnold had muscle, he had weight on him, but Carl Weathers was just aesthetically just the best looking to me.
You know what? I think you're right. I think you're right about that because Arnold had, but the thing with Arnold was he was also so tall and just so broad-shouldered.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Weathers, when he's like in this movie, when he's wearing his suit jacket or his whatever, he just looks like a run-of-the-mill normal guy. But when you see him without the shirt and he is just cut head to toe,
Yeah.
it's the same way. It's the same way that I've always looked at the way Stallone is. Stallone, again, when he's wearing clothes, just looks like a normal, regular guy. No one's ever going to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger as if they're a regular, average-looking person. I mean, that's just not a thing.
No, he's just a big.
And it's the same thing. And it's the same thing with a guy like Dolph, like Dolph Lundgren. They're just so massive to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, this and the way he looks in all the Rocky movies, and I think I'd have to agree with you with that statement.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely top 2 for sure. I personally would give him the top spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, his he had he had it all when it comes to being that star, but I just for some reason it just fell through, and it sucks. But at least we got this movie, and I'm glad because I definitely like going back and watching this movie. You know, every few years or so.
Yeah. Well, for our listeners who haven't seen this movie, number one, we're going to spoil it. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to run through the summary real quick. So Jericho Action Jackson is a police sergeant in Detroit with a fairly brutal reputation, hence the nickname.
Yeah, he's like John Wick.
Yeah. Driven by vengeance, he targets a power-hungry auto magnate who is systematically eliminating his competition. Now, this auto magnate is played by one of my personal favorites, Mr. Craig T. Nelson. I was a huge Coach fan when I was a kid. I'd watch that reruns all the time.
It was one of for me, it was one of those shows I liked. Didn't realize I didn't even have a reason why I liked it because I was a child.
I was the same way.
I just thought it was funny, or I just couldn't stop. I just didn't. Whenever it was on, I watched it for some reason.
I think what I liked is I always liked his character. Like I always liked Coach. But the whole thing that I liked was I'm looking up the cast right now because I can't remember the character's name.
His buddy?
Yeah, Dauber, the guy who now voices Patrick on SpongeBob, who's Marshall's father in How I Met Your Mother. His dopey, the low pitched dopey voice that he had always just made me chuckle, and then he had the other old assistant coach with him. I think just the way those three played off each other, I really enjoyed. But yeah, I was a kid, and it would be on, and I'd be glued to the TV. I don't know why, but yeah, I've always liked Craig T. Nelson whenever he pops up in things. I mean, even now, I enjoy watching him in Young Sheldon. He's really good.
Okay, I've seen some episodes of Young Sheldon at the gym, but yeah, I didn't realize he was in that.
Yeah, he's dating Sheldon's grandmother in the show.
No. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I think I've seen him in one of the episodes, but I
didn't have a context to it.
No, yeah, and I was half paying attention. But no. Coach is the only besides this role in Action Jackson I've seen him in, and it's crazy because he actually plays a pretty good villain in this movie. All the villains are actually, you kind of can't wait for their demise, and which is a really good for the movie to want you to root for the villain to get its upcomings. Yeah, and he plays a really scummy villain for sure. Yeah, even though personally I just couldn't see. It's one of those how you feel about Denzel Washington in Training Day. It's how I kind of feel about him in this role.
Okay.
But he did play it great. Don't get me wrong.
He was very over the top.
It's just, for some reason, I can't. It's Craig T. Nelson, for God's sakes. You know what I mean?
The thing I had a hard time with, I agree.
It was hard time to really get. Yeah, it was hard time to really get lost in that.
I like his portrayal of the character. My whole thing with the scene where it shows him like training martial arts.
That's it.
That came
That's
like that was out of left field. I was like,
it was left out of left field, and he didn't. It wasn't believable, man.
well, there was
I'm
even
not.
that, but then I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, okay, he's being trained, like and then all of a sudden it's like they're actually fighting, and somebody comes in to interrupt them, and they're like bowing at one another, and the guy goes to move towards him, and he just breaks his arm, and he's like, lessons over, and I'm like, wait, were you sparring this guy? Were you teaching him? There's no backstory to it.
Well, it was.
It's
I got the impression that he was his teacher, but he ended up, surpassing the teacher. But that was like the last lesson, and he's the bad guy, so he has to do some evil bad guy stuff by breaking the teacher's arm and then telling him the lesson's over. That's kind of what I got from that.
I thought it was more of a sparring partner situation because the guy he was fighting looked like he was about 15 years younger.
Yeah, it could have been a
So,
sparring
so that's what
situation.
I thought. But
He just broke his arm. I don't
I
know.
will say one of the first notes that I have written down, and being from where we live right across from Detroit, it's really cool that this movie is set there. And I love that the opening shot of the movie is a shot of the Renaissance Center.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, most movies that quote unquote set in Detroit, they'll have that establishing or that one scene that was
Yeah.
actually shot in Detroit.
The one I
Most,
always think of is Four Brothers when Mark Wahlberg drives by the train station. And if anybody is from around here or is from Detroit, you know what I mean when I say the train station.
yeah, pretty much.
Just take my word for it.
Or they're
I think
passing
I think they've revamped it, but this thing was dilapidated. All the windows were broken, but it was still a landmark, even though it was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember first watching that movie, and he's driving, and just off the back of his car, you could see it. And, oh, that's the train station. I know that place.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if they shot the entirety of this movie in Detroit, but they say they did. I'd probably believe it.
I think they did. I think because I think back then
It
it was
looked
a
like
lot. Well, I think it was a lot more common for movies to be shot where they were based, whereas nowadays everything seems to be like, oh, you get the tax credits if you film here, or it's cheaper if they film in Canada. So a lot of times you see BC and Toronto um,
okay.
double as New York or Chicago or something like that. So, but I think back in the 80s and even the early 90s, I think it was a lot more popular for them to shoot in actual locations. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they shot if 90%, if not all of this in Detroit.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it looks authentic, which is good. Makes you puts you into the movie a little bit more, for sure.
Yeah. So the opening scene, like I said, was at the Ren Cent, and then you've got I don't know how this was set up because it's
Dude, this is the greatest opening, I think. This is
well,
top
well, number
one of
one, it starts off. There's a guy with his secretary, and it looks like he's. I don't know if she's down, but it looks like they're about to engage in some kind of extracurricular relationship activity, and she doesn't look super impressed. But then all of a sudden, these fucking all I could think of, they just acted like ninjas.
SWAT Team Ninjas.
That's what they are. They fucking just break through the windows on like the 50th floor, wherever they are, and they just start taking them. They kill this woman with one punch to the face, and she falls through a glass window.
That was fucking incredible.
I didn't know she was dead until like two scenes later when they're like, yeah, the girl was dead. The girl was dead on the floor, and I was like, they killed her?
Yeah, they didn't really make it apparent that she died, but I never seen a woman get hit that hard in a movie before.
No, and that's why I was
By
like,
a
okay,
punch.
I'm like, okay, she's unconscious, like because they hit her, and then she falls through a plate glass partition in the office and kind of hits the ground, and you just see a little bit of blood under her nose, and I'm like, okay. And then the next scene, they're like, she's dead. Now, granted, it was the opening scene, like she wasn't a character, but I'm like, that's odd.
It's like, enough about that. Let's get to this. I didn't hate it. It didn't hurt anything for me. I was like, hey, she
Oh, I didn't hate it.
fell.
I didn't hate it.
She
I was
fell
just kind
hard.
of like,
It's like, okay.
yeah, I didn't hate it. I was just kind of like, huh, okay, moving
I just
on.
appreciated that they let a man absolutely punch the shit out of a chick right in the face without any without any disregard. They just did it. You know, it's
Yeah,
crazy. It's just jarring to see something like that.
it is. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but
Yeah, it's effective. You know, it's effective.
yeah. But you come to find out that this guy is he's one of the higher ups in the auto workers union, and that's really all you hear about it until later in the film. Um,
Mhm.
I do like this scene. Now, I will say this.
His
Uh,
death.
no, sorry for any of our listeners. I'm currently battling a cold, so bear with me. Um, I liked his death, but even surpassing that, I was going to go with the next scene. Unless you want to discuss what happens to him while I
Oh,
take a drink of water.
well, basically when these SWAT ninjas break in,
SWAT ninjas.
they they're basically toying with him. They could have just shot him right there on the spot, but no, they decided to have him run throughout the building, and every time he like turns a corner or enters a room, there's a bunch of other thugs there to beat the shit out of him, punch him. There's a recurring character who's one of my favorites is the butterfly knife guy. That guy's awesome. And he uh, he throws his butterfly knife at the guy's hand, which the effect actually looked pretty cool.
When it sticks to the door, that was pretty sick.
Yeah, right. And so he takes the other guy takes the knife off and he starts running. Then he turns a corner and he sees like the main bad guy, and he starts backing up towards the a window. So something's gonna happen that makes him jump out of this window either through his own accord or not. And then the bad guys pull out this gun
It looks like
with
a fucking grenade launcher.
it is a grenade launcher. I'm pretty sure it is. And it hits him. He goes flying out the window. As he touches the window, I guess the grenade explodes
Yeah, that was crazy.
in one massive explosion, and his body's still fine, but he's on fire, and you see that body as it's going down, which is in fucking insane. And the body proceeds to crash through the glass, interrupting people's dinner, and screaming precedes that, and
Yeah.
cue the music. Which I when it comes to openings, I think that's very well done.
No, I thought it was a really good kind of, for lack of a better term, punch in the face opening of a movie.
Over the top as shit, super unrealistic, but hey, it's super entertaining, man, and it sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but find me one of these, like we refer to them as 80s action movies, that
Oh,
didn't
they all
have
have.
that type of
Yeah,
opening.
it's very paint by number type of opening, but I really like the execution of it, man.
Yeah. I will say I wrote a note about that scene and I just put a businessman with a gun. That sounds right for Detroit.
Right?
I joke, I love Detroit. I go over there all the time.
Yeah, but 80s Detroit had a certain reputation.
Yes, it did. I was not around back then, so I wasn't crossing the border too often back then.
For sure.
And then so we ride that right into the next scene with this fucking kid with the pickpocketing or the purse stealing, whatever. And I love that one of the two cops that kind of notice him was fucking Thomas F. Wilson, Biff Tannen himself.
I didn't realize that till I rewatched it.
Well, I saw his name come up in the credits, and I was like, "What the fuck is he doing in this movie?"
Mm.
And then I'm like, "Well, clearly he's probably going to be working for the bad guys because it's Biff Tannen." Like, hello. But no,
Nah.
he ended up being a cop, and he's I love him in this entire movie. I think he's a great actor in general. But I got a real kick out of him this whole movie, and I like how after they arrest this kid for trying to steal this woman's purse. I love that they're telling him all these myths because they're like, oh,
Myth.
you're gonna have to go talk with Sergeant Jackson. They call him Action Jackson, and they're telling him all these things. And one, I have a couple of them written down, and he says NASA created him as the first person to walk on the moon without a spacesuit. And the other one, which I laughed out loud, was his mother was molested by Bigfoot, and he's their mutant offspring.
God damn. Yeah, it's very Chuck Norris-y, John Wick-ish.
Yeah, before the Chuck Norris-isms came about.
Yeah, which is it's kind of cool. I like this movie. Honestly, has a few firsts.
But I love that this kid, they show him, and he is just like, he's in a cold sweat, and he's like shitting bricks. Like, he's terrified.
Oh yeah, I would be if they're telling me all this stuff about this dude I'm about to go see.
And then when he ends up coming face to face with him, he just faints.
The cartoonish, freaking soap opera TV faint.
Well, that's okay. Now I will bring up that was one of the things that I was a little disappointed about with this movie was when they first introduce him. And even throughout the movie, I was thinking that this was going to be some like a really, really corny and over the top 80s movie where it was almost like a Chappelle Show skit where he'd be walking around being like, "I'm Action Jackson, bitch." Like really hamming it up, but it never really was like that. I don't think he ever even. It was almost like he was partially ashamed of the nickname, whereas I kind of thought they were going to play it up for like he was really proud of it, and like that's what you're going to refer to me as, and things like that.
Yeah, he's not. You could. It's probably one of those nicknames that when he first got it, he was probably really into that nickname, and then over time he realized that with that name comes just destruction and drama, and he just doesn't want to be involved in that anymore.
Yeah, because they say he got demoted from lieutenant down to sergeant because of his Action Jackson nonsense.
They said it quickly, but he lost his wife because of his Action Jackson antics.
And it had something to do with, they mentioned, they don't really get into it, but it had something to do with Craig T. Nelson's son.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't recall them ever really going into detail about it.
Right? I don't know if, like, because Action Jackson mentions that he relocated him. Is he in prison? Did he kill him?
I don't know, because it sounds, when they talk about it,
he took him to prison.
It almost sounded like the way they talk. I feel like I remember him saying something about like there was something to do with like a sexual thing, like almost like the guy was a predator or something like that, but they never go into it, so there's no, I don't know what the actual thing was. I just know it had to do with the guy's son, and that's kind of where his vengeance comes from, like almost like he blames Craig T. Nelson and his power and money, and that's why the police force knocked him down the way they did.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got too, for the most part. But like all the other type of details and specifics, it could be anybody's guess, I guess.
Yeah. I will say, so in this movie, you get Craig T. Nelson as the main villain, and his wife is played by Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone, son.
Dude, I think she is completely wasted in this movie. She has nothing.
Total Recall.
She
Stone.
has nothing to do in this movie.
She is a smoke show in this movie, and she has nothing to do. Poor Sharon Stone, because she's
a great actress.
She's great in this movie. I feel like they probably didn't have enough money to keep her around. That's why she probably got killed off early, because they couldn't keep her around any longer.
I think that was probably the case, but it's like, if that's the issue, just hire a different actress. I mean,
that's what it seems like, because it was like she got killed out of nowhere. It's like it just seemed like it wasn't something that was originally part of the script, but they kind of put it in there because of whatever reason. Maybe she had maybe could have been conflicting schedules. Could have been that, she was a very popular actress at the time, so who knows?
Yeah, but I don't know.
I feel like it was honestly outside reasons why she wasn't in the whole movie.
Yeah, to me it was a little
I wouldn't say wasted, but
I would. For the amount of things for the amount that they had her do in this movie, I think she was wasted personally.
Yeah,
because Sharon Stone is a great actress, and then in this movie they basically just have her. She doesn't do anything. Like she wants to pull action, like Jackson aside, to basically say, "I think this is what my husband's up to," and then I'm dead.
Yeah, they kind of just built a lot of the story around her for it to just kind of result into nothing. So her being a waste in this movie, I think had something to do with the budget or something. It had to have been, man. I think probably the original plan was to keep her longer.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
It seems that way.
I'll say this. Had this movie come out after either Total Recall or Basic Instinct, she would have been in the movie. I think she would have had a lot more to do. Like, those are her big star-making vehicles. I think if those movies would have been made before this, she would have been a much more centralized focal point to this movie.
For sure. At first, because I didn't really get a look at the one SWAT ninja with long blonde hair, I thought it was Sharon Stone.
Oh, you thought she was one of the...
At the very beginning, I was like, okay, they're bringing her in, but no.
That would have been an interesting twist.
That would have been pretty sweet, but no. Yeah, that would have been a great way to keep her around, but I just have a... Yeah, she does. It feels like she is wasted in this movie, and it is, when I really think about it. But it's just a shame that they just didn't utilize her a little bit more in this movie.
Yeah, they basically used her, like you say, as a quick little plot device, and then they had her topless for a scene. That was pretty much why she was in the movie, I feel.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that, but I think she could have done a lot more.
For sure.
But I think the biggest thing she does to the movie is she overhears one of the henchmen.
Oh, Mr. Thumb?
Yeah. And she overhears him on the phone, and she immediately wants to find out what's going on. And as she's about to leave the house, you can tell that they're kind of cueing in that she thinks she knows that something isn't right. And all of the people in the house kind of start moving towards her as almost like, something bad's going to happen. And right at that moment, who shows up but Action Jackson, because he wants to speak to her husband, but he's not there. So she's like, "Oh, are you going into town? Can I take a ride?" And then it shows them in a bar kind of discussing things. And I feel like basically that's her biggest part, is to have that scene, because immediately following that, you get what you and I discussed off the pod as the Captain America scene. When they're
right,
fucking,
another first. They did this first.
well, it's I was laughing out loud. So there's a guy driving a cab, and he's trying to kill. I'm not sure if he's trying to kill her, him, or both of them, or if there's a specific target. But basically, Carl Weathers pushes her and himself out of the way of getting hit by this cab, and then he just takes off at a run. And he chases down this cab just like fucking Chris Evans in the first Avenger does, except Carl Weathers doesn't have a super soldier serum coursing through his veins. He just has himself. But he catches...
He's a football. He played football, okay?
I played football. I can't move like that.
He was hey, they built him up to be this mythical...
I know, he's this larger than life type thing.
But yeah, no. Him running the same speed as a fucking car is completely just ridiculous.
Well, there's that, but then he dives
on the car.
He dives on top of the car, and then he punches through the window, which, if you've ever seen any movie before, I've never seen a windshield of a car break like this. Normally they break by like the big spider crack, and then they kick the window out. No, he just fucking punches through this thing like it's a regular piece of glass, and it explodes in the driver's face.
Hell yeah.
Again, it's totally over the top, but for the time and the type of movie, it's completely enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah, you're this movie is just, you're in for the ride. And that scene is just, it's part of the ride, man. It's just very entertaining. Yeah, him and then after, when he is going one-on-one facing the evil cab driver, which was the scene before where he kills his friend and he's dressed as a UPS driver.
Fucking Robert Davi. I completely forgot about Robert Davi.
This motherfucking guy is the most bad guy, evil, obvious bad guy, henchman, assassin I've ever seen. I don't judge a book by its cover at all, but that nigga was
suspicious it's Robert
as
Davi.
Hell, man. It's like he's obviously
but could that
dark glasses? Like, come on.
Oh, you're talking about the UPS. I thought you were talking about Robert Davi.
No, the motherfucker that shoots him.
Yeah, he gets off the elevator just stone faced with like black sunglasses. I've never seen sunglasses.
Walking slow, just looks suspicious as shit.
I've never seen sunglasses tinted that dark.
This motherfucker is about to do something. And sure enough, but yeah, he's in the cab and he's about to shoot Action Jackson, but Action Jackson convinces the guy to instead of using
hand to hand,
right?
Do it like men, because he's like, I'm unarmed.
So he's like, all right. So he decides to.
In what world would that work?
No,
he'd just be like, I'm done.
So you know what? I'm not gonna get the obvious easy kill here.
It would be like the fucking Indiana Jones scene with the guy with the sword. Just shoot him and walk away.
Pretty much. But hey, we're gonna accept that. We're gonna accept that in this movie.
I will say, going back to the whole Robert Davi thing, when I saw that he was in this movie, I again, because of the time, I figured he would have been had a bigger part in this movie. I mean, I don't think we had gotten there yet, but I mean, this is I know we haven't gotten to Die Hard because the Die Hard was the same year, but I don't remember when it came out. And yeah, we are after the Goonies actually. So I mean, that's what I know Robert Davi mainly from.
For sure. So I mainly know him from. What are you talking about?
I've seen him in other things, but the little bit parts, like
Goonies guy. That's the
I
first thing I reference when I see him. It's like, hey,
yeah, it's
Goonies.
Goonies. It's Goonies and Die Hard, 100%.
This
And
guy
he's
is
one.
trying to kill children.
He's one of he has when he shows up in Die Hard. It's one of my favorite comedic parts of that movie because it's him and the black guy, and they go Agent Johnson and Special Agent Johnson, and he goes no relation.
Yeah. Nah, this movie has a lot of. It's funny.
Dude,
A
there's
lot of it's
so
very.
many people in this movie that I recognize from other '80s movies.
Well, it's littered with them. It's definitely littered with them for sure.
Well, I mean, like I said, we had the producer, or sorry, the guy who directed it was a stunt coordinator on Predator, and Predator also starred fucking Carl Weathers and Bill Duke, the captain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got fucking Robert Davi, you've got Thomas F. Wilson, and then if you keep going into Craig Nelson's, his number two, the Asian gentleman with the long hair, he's one of the henchmen in Die Hard. He's the guy who gets the fucking crunch bar
Yeah, and
from
the
the
guy that
concession.
the guy that he breaks his arm. He's also a bad guy in like a bunch. At least I've seen him in some other action movies. So they like snagged the only the most famous two Asian actors for this movie that were in tons of movies,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys that were in Predator and Die Hard and
Well, there's
yeah.
another guy from Die Hard near the end. Another one of the henchmen is from Die Hard. He's the guy who sits at the security desk watching the football game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
And also
were you guys
also
just filming side by side and just walked over and
was it the the cab driver too from Die Hard?
Argyle? He's
Yeah,
his fucking valet.
yeah, it's riddled with it, man. It's riddled with him.
I almost yelled I almost yelled at my TV when that came on. He pulls up and the kid comes out to go park his car, and I'm like, that's fucking Argyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like cameo, bunch of cameos in this movie,
Oh yeah. I mean,
but you just didn't realize it.
90% of them I couldn't tell you their real names, but it's like I know him from that, I know him from this, and oh yeah, they're
Mhm.
all over the place in this movie.
And it just fits very well, man. This movie has just a special charm to it.
You know
I
what? You know something I really like that feeds into that charm. I really like the aesthetics, and it a lot of it is because it's the '80s, but the aesthetics of that the smoke filled rooms, and then you have like the lights kind of shining through the smoke, and it gives that real hazy villainous type look.
okay, yeah.
I I don't know why, but I really like that. Especially there's a scene where Craig T. Nelson's kind of walking through. It almost looks like a nightclub or a lounge bar, and you've got multiple different colored lights, and it's kind of going through that haze, and it's just I think it's a really good look for the villain. And then a lot of times when you see Carl Weathers' character, it's all bright. He's in the sunlight. It's a really good juxtaposition between the way the two characters are shown.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's I didn't really pay attention to that, but yeah, that does make sense. I especially yeah, there's a couple scenes where yeah, he's just you barely see Craig T. Nelson's face. He's just a shadow. You know it's him, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's just darkness is consuming him.
Yeah, I really also like the framing device in the scene where he kills Sharon Stone's character. Um, when she hugs him and they slowly pan down
To the gun and
to the gun in his waist, and then they come back up, and her hand just almost touches it, and then they come back up, and then she kind of walks away from him and comes back and gives him another hug, and the camera pans back down, and the gun is now gone, and he just shoots her in the chest. I thought that was really well done and a really smart way to. Because I mean, it would have been fine for him to literally just hug her and shoot her, but I think that added a little bit more suspense to what was going on. So I think that was a really nice touch.
yeah, no, it was a great way to draw out that tension. Yeah, yeah, it's very well done. A very effective scene, and makes you root for Action Jackson a lot more, and makes you hate Craig T. Nelson's character a lot more at the
I
same
mean,
time.
he was already someone not very likable. I mean, you start off by remember when he's married to Sharon Stone, and then he's cheating on her with this lounge singer played by Vanity, who I had never heard of her before.
No,
No,
she was in Purple Rain.
dude, I haven't seen. I don't know. I haven't seen Purple Rain in I don't know how long.
Ah, dude, I keep forgetting you're white.
Did you,
Vanity again.
did you know
If
she's
you,
Canadian?
I didn't know that.
So I looked it up because I'm like, I don't know who this girl is. And now, not very often do you see people just with one name.
Oh
And
yeah.
when I do, all I do is my brain goes to super bad. When he goes, one name, what do you seal?
No, Vanity was she was a big deal at that time in the late '80s. She's a big deal, and mostly because of Prince.
Yeah, I looked into it. He started a girl group called Vanity Six with her and two other girls. I don't know why it wasn't Vanity Three. Don't ask me. I wasn't there.
It was the '80s. Okay.
But that's where she kind of got her start, and she went on to do a solo career, and then went on to do movies and things like that. But
Oh shoot, I corrected myself. No, she wasn't in Purple Rain. She was in another '80s classic that you haven't seen called The Last Dragon.
oh, that's the one you want me to watch.
There was a nut. I always mix her up and another very attractive woman that rolled with Prince at the time. Yeah, yeah, but no, I just wanted to to make note of that. No, she was in The Last Dragon, and no, she in this movie she's a lot better
I
for
mean,
the most.
it was one of those things where she looked vaguely familiar, but I'm like, I don't know if I can place this woman's face. And then I looked it up and I saw her name and I went, no, that definitely doesn't seem familiar to me.
Now, one of those like one hit wonder chicks that was had her time to shine in the late '80s, but and it's kind of sad seeing her in this role because if you've seen the movie, you know the things that she delves in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
And I'll just say in her real life at the time,
Wasn't so
this
good.
role was kind of like art imitating life
Yeah.
is all I'll really say.
From what I read, it kind of sounded like that. She actually passed away in 2016.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but I did some research on her. She actually, just a few years after this, I think it was in 1990, she became like a born again Christian and got her life kind of back on track and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But I guess all those early years of the way she kind of was kind of hurt her in the long run because she passed away in 2016, sadly.
Yeah. No, she was, she dealt with her, demons for a long period of time, and then, got her life in order over the years. And yeah, it is unfortunate that she passed way too soon. Um, because in the late '80s, man, and even, this movie and The Last Dragon, um, for me, I watched these movies as very young. She was one of, I'd say, my first crushes. She was like definitely one of the first females who I knew that was very pretty.
Yeah, she's a very attractive girl.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. And yeah, and when it comes to the female lead role in the movie, she did okay.
See, I
I
don't think
mean,
she did that bad. She was
recognize
I
that.
feel that she was serviceable for what she was there to do.
Yeah, for what was given for her to do, she did. It was fine.
I mean, again, her not like there was a whole lot written for her character, and there wasn't much written for any female character in the '80s in movies like this. Let's be honest.
Very few. Very few. We still, at the time, we still had our Sarah Connors and our Ripleys, but they were very far in between.
Yeah, but even Sarah Connor in the first Terminator, she takes a
Oh
back
yeah.
seat to Kyle Reese.
Well,
She's not badass Sarah Connor till T2, and that's in '92.
that's true. Okay, I guess we only had Ripley at the
Only
time.
Ripley.
We just had Ripley at the time. So yeah, no, not a whole lot of examples of very well written female characters with that really weren't the damsel, because that's
No,
pretty
that's
much
pretty
her
much what
role.
they play. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, it's sign of the times. It's just how it was back then, and yeah, she was fine in that role.
Yeah. Well, that being on a bit of a somber note, we'll go back to the film. You get to see you guys balls in a jar.
Pretty much, yeah.
That scene was wild. When he's going to try and get information, like, yeah, he's over there in the back room, and they open a cabinet. It's the guy's fucking balls in a mason jar.
Yeah, this movie does some bold things.
Did you did you happen to notice? So when they take him out of there, because they're like, oh, he was an informant, he was ratting everybody out, so they killed this guy, and now they're threatening him. Did you notice who the guy is who's doing the threatening? The little skinny guy.
I don't think so.
That's fucking Joanna, man. That's Michael
Oh yeah, yeah,
Enriquez.
yeah, 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 yeah. That yeah, 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 yeah,
I,
yeah.
he came on
He
screen. And I'm going, God.
yeah,
For a split second when he came on screen, I went, "Is that Arsenio Hall?"
because it's the '80s and he wasn't wearing a Jerry curl. I almost didn't recognize him because the only other movie that I seen him in, he got killed in a one of the Jasons, one of the Friday the 13th. I forget which one.
I can't remember which one it was, but I know what
He
you're
gets
talking about.
Yeah, he gets killed in like an outhouse, or
Yeah,
no, not an outhouse, a freaking porta potty.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
So
yeah,
that's like,
the first split second he was there, I was like, "Is that Arsenio Hall?"
oh,
And then they kind of went in, and I went, "No, that's fucking Joanna, man."
for sure. It's Miguel Nunez. Yeah, no, he's it's always good to see him. I
Yeah,
love some acting,
I like him. He's funny.
for sure.
There is a lot.
And
I will say, I know it's the '80s, but there's a lot of bad ADR in this movie. Did you catch any of that? Like,
I got some
there's
of it.
there are scenes where ADR is fine when the character's back is to the screen, but there were times where their mouths are saying one thing and you're hearing something completely different. It almost looked like a foreign film for a second.
Yeah, no,
It doesn't happen a lot, but
yeah, if it wasn't for the fight scene that followed, it would stick out a lot more.
dude, the fight scenes in this movie are fantastic.
Great.
And I love the
And somehow almost always ends up in an explosion. It's great.
well, yeah, because it's the 80s. Which another 80s trope, which I love, is all the little quips that he has before he kills somebody.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weaker parts. Is his quips
They're
just
not great, but they're in.
they
I
didn't
find
hit
them.
for me. They're okay.
I
And
like
they
the
just
I like the fact that they're there, even though they're
and I
not the
think that's
greatest.
probably I think that's probably why this movie isn't as memorable because none of the quips were memorable.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If it had a "I'll be back" type of moment, and that line was in the zeitgeist of pop culture for the '80s, a lot of people would have known of this movie a lot more.
yeah, yeah. Because I think that would have been a big thing for this. They, like I say, they were there and they were okay in the moment. I just enjoyed the addition of them. Like that was a big trope with movies like this in the 80s, and it was fun to see it, even
Oh
if they
yeah,
weren't
this
the greatest.
this movie has so many '80s action movie tropes, like the angry police chief,
Yeah, but it's
or
Bill Duke, so he's allowed.
or the the partner police officers. One's young and one's a little bit older. The young one's kind of dumb, or the hero cop getting in shit all the time for destroying the entire city. And
Well, because they even say at a point in this movie that not only he knocked down from lieutenant, but he also lost his gun and something else. And I'm like, I don't think you can do that. I think the only time cops lose their gun is if they're suspended.
this movie honestly has one of my biggest and the one that the movie trope that I need explaining the most is when the guy that driving the cab, he tries to hit Action Jackson, and then Action Jackson does this like super
The jump
Cap-
over.
Captain America flip over it, right?
It's like a
And then
gymnast.
right, and in doing so, the bad guy hits a ramp and it crashes into a store. Okay,
A ramp in the
the
shape of another car.
right, the car is still crashing as Action Jackson's running to the car.
And the
It's
guy's
still
gone.
crashing. When Action Jackson gets to the cab, the guy's gone.
And he's nowhere to be seen.
I can't tell you how many movies that's happened within like in the 80s and early 90s.
Well, and the funny
It's
thing is,
it bothers me the most
this
because
car lands.
that is literally impossible.
Well,
It's impossible.
the car lands in a building, like in a storefront, where
How,
there's only like one other way he can get out of the store, and it's the same way that the main character is coming in.
how do you get out of that car,
And
bro?
he's not in the car, and he's not in the store. It's like, where did he go?
Where did he go? Where'd he go? Oh,
Oh yeah,
I
those
can't
are
tell you
good.
how many movies that's happened, man. I think Lethal Weapon had one of those.
I think
Uh,
I think I think all of the Lethal Weapons
it,
had one of those.
right? It's one that bothers me the most because it's literally impossible. It's literally it's literally impossible. But
I
I appreciate it a little bit more now, I guess I'm older. But it's just so stupid, man. It's so stupid.
I liked you brought up the jump over the cab, because like I said, it looked like a fucking gymnast did that. Like he did a flip and a spin and
He did a flip, and then the way they edited it, he had like extra momentum added to the flip because of the edit wasn't that good. So it looked like he like gained speed in the middle of the jump. It
Yeah,
was
it was
ridiculous.
weird.
It was so weird, but hey, it's the 80s, man. You have to just go with it. And you do. With all the apparent flaws this movie has, you still go with it because it's that entertaining and fun.
Yeah. The one that I really had an issue with, and we said earlier that this movie doesn't really defy that like too many laws of physics, except maybe the Captain America thing and that jump. Uh, Looking down at my notes, there is another one, and it's the tail end of the movie when they're at. So basically, the end of the plot is Craig T. Nelson has already murdered these three higher ups of the auto workers union, and there's one more guy. It's the president of the AWA, the Auto Workers Association, and he throws a big birthday party for him at his house. And the whole plan is he's going to have him killed, and then he has a patsy basically who's going to take over, and he's going to basically be able to do whatever he wants because he is this. He's like the modern day Henry Ford, like just a car manufacturer. And during this party, when the evil cab driver comes back, and he's gonna he has a sniper rifle in a tree, and he's gonna take this guy out. Jackson prevents him from killing him, but at the same time, you find out that this Vanity's character, Sydney is her name, is being held hostage in an upstairs bedroom, which somehow Craig T. Nelson is able to get to without anybody stopping him.
Yeah, because
And the way that Action Jackson gets there is there's this show car, I guess you'd call it, of the make that Craig T. Nelson's character has. And he takes that car and he drives it into the house and drives it up the stairs to the second floor.
Hell yeah.
Now the problem I had with this is they show that staircase earlier in the movie, and that staircase is 90 degrees. So it goes up and then a hard 90 degrees to the left. I'm sorry, that car ain't making that turn.
For the sake of the shot.
Well, then they even show it. They even show it coming around a corner on the second floor.
Yeah, true. But look, there's a car going through a goddamn house. All right, this is awesome.
Oh God,
it's awesome.
I found it hilarious, and I was like, yeah, I'll go with it. It's the same kind of thing when you watch a Die Hard movie. Like, oh, John McClane can do this. Sure, I'll go with it.
This is before or after when at like the what was it, like like what was it, like a factory or something where they were at, where he gets captured?
Oh, that's where they capture her, and then they're gonna kill him, but he's able to. I forget how he gets.
Exactly.
The girl's Vanity's bodyguard from earlier in the movie shows up. Big MVP. Ed, they call him.
He's the MVP of this whole movie.
And then
270. I think they made a point in 270.
Bullshit. That dude's bigger than me.
And apparently he doesn't. Punches do not hurt him.
Oh, that was funny. Every time they do that.
He's definitely the MVP of this movie. Like, Action Jackson would have got burnt to death if it was for him jumping down and beating the shit out of everybody.
Well, and then Action Jackson gets to turn that fucking rocket launcher or grenade launcher at the rest of the henchmen.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
But that's all you see is you get that scene, and then it's a hard cut, and he's in a suit or a tuxedo at the party.
Hard cut. For sure. And I just wanted to say, did they shoot RoboCop there?
At what? The house?
No. That's the factory, wherever they were at.
I don't know, but it definitely looks familiar. But then again, how many of those types of mills or plants look just like that?
I only say that because RoboCop is also supposed to be set in Detroit.
That's a good point.
It just looked like it too.
I hadn't thought of that.
It could have been anything. It just reminded me so much of great scenes in RoboCop.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. And I just wanted to make a point. Another scene involving that location. When they capture Action Jackson, for some reason they decided to, we're going to handcuff you, but we're going to take your shirt off. Because we got to get the shot of the muscles.
Which makes no sense, because if they left the shirt on and their plan was to burn him, you light that shirt on fire and let that do half the work.
Right? But they needed the ab shot.
And it's a perfect shot for that, because he's got his two arms like half raised, like he's Jesus on the cross.
And he's mid-flex. He's like, exactly, like he's flexing the whole time, so it just makes his muscles pop.
He's half flexing. Somehow he's covered in oil.
Oh yeah, he's glistening. He's glistening in that scene for sure. Got that baby oil. He's got the same baby oiler as the guy that did The Rock in Fast 5.
Oh yeah.
It's the same baby oil. But yeah, no. Again, like it's a sign of the times, and I just thought, I chuckled when I seen that scene. But I had to mention the MVP of Vanity's character's bodyguard, because
Big Ed, I think
he was putting in work. He put in a lot of work. He didn't have to do any of that.
No, he didn't have to at all.
For sure. I guess they needed a way Action Jackson out of that scene, and they decided to give Big Man a shot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. From there we get to the, as alluded to, with the car driving up the fucking stairs. We get the final confrontation between Action Jackson and, we haven't even said his character name, Peter Delaplane, which is Craig T. Nelson's character. And my favorite part of this scene is it becomes a hand-to-hand fight, and of course Craig T. Nelson is using his martial arts we saw earlier in the movie. But I was super excited because it looked like fucking Apollo Creed all over again. He was bobbing and weaving.
Hell yeah.
Throwing those jabs. I thought it was great.
It was great. It was great, man. It was when it comes to like one-on-one with the bad guys, you don't really see a whole lot of, just when it comes to a Craig T. Nelson type of villain in these movies, those type of characters don't really just throw hands.
No, because if they do, he was that young, that young, like compared to what we know him now, he looks strikingly young. But he was kind of scrawny, and he wasn't very big frame wise.
But
so of course
he was really tall.
Craig T. Nelson is a tall guy, but like going up against Carl Weathers, you could tell like obviously there was a bulk differential. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, Carl Weathers can sell a punch. Craig T. Nelson just couldn't sell it. He just couldn't sell the punches, man. But it didn't hurt that scene. But if he could have sold it, it would have elevated. It would have made this scene, or at least his character, more well known.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a negative. I think he did a great job with the villain role overall when it came to the monologuing and the intellectual planning and things like that. It was just he's not the type of villain, like you say, to get physical with his adversary.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this type of movie, it being an action movie, you kind of have to have that.
Yeah, if you really want it to be believable and to sell it well, and for the audience to actually believe what's happening.
Yeah.
But that's the only ingredient that he didn't nail. That yeah, unfortunately, just it held him back. But
Yeah, other than that, I thought he was a phenomenal villain.
for sure, surprised that it's a shame you didn't see him as a villain in more things.
The main other thing I know him as a villain in is the movie The Skulls from '99, where he plays Paul Walker's father, like the head of the secret society.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same idea. He is not physical in that movie, which I think makes the role better for him because you don't have that limitation that he. I mean, he's also considerably older in that movie, so you don't have those limitations that he has to try and pull off. He can just kind of be menacing.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though that last shot between the two of them when they both go for their gun, there has never in any movie, I don't care if it's Commando, I don't care if it's Rambo, there has never been a movie where a handgun bullet produces the amount of damage and blood that Craig T. Nelson's body produces when he gets shot. He's shot dead center in the chest, and it looks like the amount of spray or the squib, whatever they used that went off when he got shot, it looked like he got hit with a fucking shotgun at point blank range, and a hole was put through his chest.
Yeah, whoever made that blood pack definitely overdid it, and
It was
I guess
comical.
they just went with it.
It was completely comical.
But yeah, I guess a lot of movies in the '80s kind of were like that. If you got shot with a gun, especially those type of movies, because I can remember like RoboCop, where people were getting pieced up by simple guns, and it looked like their bodies were just exploding.
Yeah. But
Yeah, so
RoboCop was a futuristic movie. I'm sure they could have just
true.
had a line where it's like, "Oh, these bullets are explosive" or whatever.
Yeah, but again, it's just in the realm of '80s movies where people were getting shot, and it
Yeah,
was
it's
just
all over the top.
over the top. But again, this movie let you know that we're gonna do almost everything over the top when it comes to violence. So I guess it's just part of that part of the movie, man. It's just
Yeah. And of course, once he is now taken care of course, Action Jackson gets the girl. They kiss, and we fade to black.
it's funny because it was throughout the whole movie, Vanity's character is kind of throwing it at him.
Oh, she's constantly egging him on.
And Action Jackson being, he's he is a very, successful, well accomplished individual, and he's the hero, and he wouldn't take advantage of a woman who was, out of her right mind and
Or under the influence, yeah.
under the influence. He wouldn't do that, and he even said in this movie he wouldn't mess with junkies. But at the very end of the movie, she basically, I don't even think she says that she's going to be clean or anything. Maybe she
Oh,
did.
she says she already is.
It's like, yeah, it's like, I'm clean, and he's like, all right, let's
Dude,
kiss.
the fucking
Which is fine. It's fine. It's
I wrote the
I'm
line.
just making an observation. They had to rush through the very ending of the movie. I get it. It's just funny how it was executed. That's all.
I wrote the line down because it was so cheesy. It just made me laugh out loud. She's basically saying that she's clean, and he goes, "Oh, really?" And she goes, "Yep, cold turkey. You can have me on Thanksgiving." And he goes, "Can I have you right now?"
Oh Jesus.
I'm pretty sure that's the last line of this goddamn movie.
Hell yeah.
And then
Cue music.
yeah, that's what it is. She kisses him, fade to black, we're out.
That's what's up.
And that's Action Jackson, everybody.
Listen. All right. This movie.
He's got to get the girl. That's a trope.
Got to get
That
the girl
has to
for
happen.
sure. and you knew they were going to end up with each other. It's just, you know, you didn't realize it was going to happen so fast
or quite that way.
in that way, for sure. But yeah, man, this movie is
It's something.
from beginning. Yeah, it's something from beginning to end. It honestly, it's a very fun ride if you enjoy most movies from the 80s, especially from the action genre. This will be a movie that you will find enjoyment of for sure. Because it's right up there. I put it right up there with the Commandos or the Rambos or, you know,
See, those aren't the movies when I think of 80s action movies that I go to.
or Lethal Weapon, dude.
I like Lethal Weapon, but my big ones I go to are Predator, um, Die Hard,
Mm,
more along those lines.
okay.
I will
Yeah.
say what I honestly thought of this movie. You know what? Maybe I'll save this for my closing thought. I'll save that. I'll save that.
We can get into it right now for sure.
Okay. Well, I would say one of the things that I thought basically through this whole movie, and it could have been the fact that it took place in Detroit, that whole thing. I really thought that this was a less funny, even less charismatic version of like Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, it was just less comedy, more action, more over the top action.
Yeah,
But the character is almost similar in a way, just
yeah,
taken.
getting chewed out by his captain, does things the
Oh,
wrong
of
way.
course. Yeah, I could see the similarities for sure. I could see the similarities.
He just doesn't. I mean, obviously, this whole movie takes place in Detroit, where he goes to Beverly Hills. But I kept thinking that through the whole movie is like this is just a less or a non-funny, I guess, version of Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, which is maybe the reason why they didn't continue with Carl Weathers as an action star. Maybe they wanted, maybe they had their action star in comedians like Eddie Murphy at the time.
It's possible. I mean,
I mean,
I
there's honestly, I think another reason is, you know, the Hollywood execs at the time, they really didn't believe that black men could sell overseas. That's the overarching reason why they really didn't give him another shot at starring in a starring role in these type of movies.
but how would they even know? When I looked up all the information for this movie, that box office of 20.25 million, that was domestic only. I don't think this movie was released in theaters internationally.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any information about a worldwide box office. It was just the worldwide said the same thing as the domestic. So to me, that says it wasn't released anywhere except North America.
hmm yeah, I'm telling you, it definitely has something to do with the execs at the time. Not probably they didn't want to release it overseas because again they had some type of weird belief that men of color starring in a movie wouldn't sell over there.
Yeah,
Even like again, they didn't. You wouldn't know because they didn't give it a shot. But it's because
they assumed,
they assumed exactly.
which is really sad and unfortunate because I think this movie would have. I mean, I yeah, when you go overseas, there are certain things in American movies that don't work, but I think overall this movie would have done decently well. It might not have been as big of a hit as it was over here because I mean,
But it would have for Carl Weathers' career, it would have boosted it a lot to a point where he would have been in a lot more movies.
well, and like I said, I really enjoyed him in this, and I think he deserved to get more roles like this. But
Absolutely.
the ones he did get, I just don't think they ever really panned out like he had hoped, which is unfortunate.
No, he. It was just. It's just the timing. there's many contributing factors, and a lot. Timing is definitely one of them. You know, it's just, yeah, it is. It just sucks. I am glad that we do have this movie, and this is a movie that I always make a point to go back to because it's enjoyable, and everyone that I've shown this movie to is have enjoyed it as well.
And it's
They
really sad,
reckon. Sorry.
especially because just a couple months ago we lost Carl Weathers. I mean, I'm sure everybody already knows that, but for any of you who don't, he passed away on February 1st, and there, it's really sad when you see an actor of this caliber, and especially one that you've grown up watching pass away, and
Especially an
you go
actor
back
that,
and watch his movies and what he did and what he contributed.
right, especially an actor that we've seen in movies that is a good actor, is funny, is charming, charisma,
Yep.
could definitely has everything one needs to be a leading movie star, and it didn't happen for him.
No, he never got that. He never had that star-making vehicle, and when he did, it was like you said, the second or third build. It
Right?
was never the leading man.
Because if he was around now at his age, the Action Jackson age, I would have fan casted him as Jon Stewart. I think he'd be a perfect Jon Stewart.
I think I really think he could be anything. I mean,
Oh,
I
for sure.
I really wish that they had taken him. And I mean, I know this is going to be typical response, but to me, his iconic character is Apollo Creed. There's no other character that's going to outshine that one, in my opinion. And I really wish that they would have taken that and made not even a series, but even just made one Apollo Creed solo movie. You could have had Rocky in it a little bit, but even if it just him and Duke, him and his trainer, I think that would have been fantastic. And I really
Oh
wish we
yeah,
would have gotten something.
yeah, absolutely. Nice.
I mean, we'll go into, like I say, into our closing thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie, and being someone who's always been a fan of '80s action movies and as well as cop and detective movies, I really enjoyed it. Even though there were a few hiccups along the way, but overall, I think it was a fun watch, and it was really enjoyable to see Carl Weathers on screen kicking ass. Overall, I would have to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. It was incredibly enjoyable, but there were, like I said, things that weren't great. But again, it was the '80s. It's hard to reconcile that, but it is what it is. I would recommend this to people who haven't seen it, especially if you like action movies, and especially if you like '80s action movies. It's just a lot of fun. It's a fun ride, and yeah, I definitely say that if you like action movies, give this one a shot.
For sure. Um, I think this movie deserves people talking about it more. I believe this movie deserves to be watched and talked about just as much as all the other great, amazing action movies of the 80s. Um, I've known this movie ever since I was a kid, and I'm glad that I grew up with it. Um, I always, from this movie, I always knew of Carl Weathers and his potential of being great, and not seeing it kind of sucks. But I am glad I had this movie. I can't recommend this enough if you are an action junkie and do like movies from the 80s. Definitely give this a watch. You won't be disappointed. Um, I give this movie a 7.
Okay.
Um, yeah, for sure. Yeah. just it's one of my go-to movies that I haven't seen in a while. If I see this flipping through channels, I will make a point to finish watching it. It's definitely one of those type of movies. Yeah. Rest in peace, Carl Weathers. I just
100%.
wish
100%.
I wish we got more movies showing your full potential, man.
He was good in Mando.
For sure. Again, yeah, exactly. He was
Again, another side
great.
character.
And whatever for the whatever small amount of time and role that he's given, he always knocks it out of the park.
Well,
And yeah, sure.
Yeah, he really was a great talent, and I'm sure all of his fans will miss him. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Geeked Out. As always, give us a follow on our social media pages. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and I will put the addresses to those in the show notes, as well as you can send us an email at geekedoutpod@gmail.com. I will also put that in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd really appreciate it. Next week, we'll be back and we will be watching DMX and Steven Seagal in Exit Wounds, another movie based in Detroit, not filmed in it, but based there. And I'm super excited to watch this movie. I haven't watched this movie in years, but this is a great watch for anybody who's never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's action movies you like and you don't mind incredibly nonsensical action movies with very little cheese or a lot of cheese, yeah, you'll like Exit Ruins. And I can't wait to delve into it again. I haven't seen it honestly in years, man. That has to be
Neither have I, but I remember
within
really
10 years.
enjoying it. I remember really
Oh yeah,
enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to it.
it's definitely stinks of early 2000 action movies, but I can't wait to get into it.
All right, well, until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Take it easy, everybody.
Peace.